great Scott!
Are you a sports fan who loves to have a good laugh?
Oh, yeah!
Then you're in the right place.
I'm gonna make him an offer again.
Life moves pretty fast.
Patriots win the
Welcome
Super Bowl!
to the Man Cave Chronicles.
Brady has his fifth!
Welcome to another episode of the Man Cave Chronicles podcast, a podcast of top culture where everyone has a story. I am your host, Elias, and you can find me on Twitter at the MCC Podcast. My guest this week, you'll see him at HBO's Westworld, Louis Herthum. Louis, welcome to the cave.
Thank you, brother. Good to be here.
What's new with you?
What's new? Well, another wonderful day here in Santa Monica, California. We have beautiful weather. We've had some serious heat wave here, and so that's always a good thing to wake up to, is a perfect kind of day. What's up? I'm starting a new project next week called What If? It's a Netflix series, a new Netflix series with Renee Zellweger, and looking very much forward to it. But things have been good.
Yeah.
Just recently, since we're plugging, you're asking me. I just recently did finish last week. In fact, first time I ever did this, audio book. I narrated a book called Mr. New Orleans by an incredible writer, Matthew Randazzo V. And so life's good. I'm staying busy.
Yeah. How was it recording an audiobook?
Man, that's a trip, because when you read a book, obviously, you read it to yourself, and you can read at whatever speed you want. And when you're reading, sometimes you kind of know what the next several words at the end of the sentence are, and you're already going to the next line, and you may transpose some words and so forth, but you don't have to go back. You understand what's going on. But when you read a book, it's word perfect. Okay. So it's kind of grueling, to be honest with you. But once you get into it, halfway through, I really caught a rhythm. But I'm also reading this particular book. It's a biography about a man named Frenchy Brouillette, who was a sort of a low-level mobster / pimp in New Orleans from the 50s through the 90s, and at least that's the part it covers. And so you're reading the character, and I did all the different characters' voices and everything. So it was really a great experience. I'm so glad I did it.
Yeah.
But it is grueling.
How many days did it take you to do something like this?
Yeah, it took. We did about. Let's see, what did we do? We did 6.5 days.
Wow.
It's about 15 hours.
Wow.
It's about 15 hours of reading. Finished reading.
Yeah. So you've been a busy man throughout your whole career. You've worked on stage, television, movies, even commercials.
Mm-hmm.
But But I want to know what the listeners, to get to know you a little bit more. Where are you originally from?
I was born and raised in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and which was at that time when I grew up, 60s. Was in high school. Graduated high school in 74. I don't mind telling people my age. Hell, it's all over the place anyway. But it was a great place to grow up. It was a capital of the state, but it was those were really much more innocent times than we're living in now.
Yeah.
And it was a great place to grow up. I had a great family. So anyway, I did that, did all the things that, most of the things that kids do. A lot of people don't know this, but I ruptured a kidney when I was 6 years old. I had an accident, ruptured a kidney, so I couldn't play sports back then. I don't know what would happen today if a kid only had one kidney. They may have some sort of protective gear, but I couldn't play football or baseball or basketball or any of the things that I loved and was really quite good at. But listen, it was just a great time. I grew up doing a lot of that stuff anyway.
Yeah.
But in 1968, my dad took me to see the film Bullet, and from that point on, I wanted to be in showbiz. I wanted to be a stuntman. That was my main goal, to become a stuntman, and I lived that dream in my head all through school through high school, college, the little bit of college that I went to, and then shortly after that found acting, and then shortly after that moved out here to LA.
Did you take any acting classes in back in your hometown, or did you decide to do that when you moved out to California?
I did take a beginning class because I started doing TV commercials and some modeling back in the 70s, just sort of because it was presented to me and I could. And I had an agent named Dee Cawthorn who I guess saw some potential in me. So she said, you should take this acting class. And I thought, well, it can't hurt. I still want to be a stunt man, but it certainly can't hurt. And it was fun. And then she sort of forced me to go read for the play The Rainmaker by N. Richard Nash at the local little theater. And long story short, I ended up getting the lead playing Starbuck, the Rainmaker, and that changed my life. And then I found that acting really was what I was my calling. And then, God, within a year, I was out here in Los Angeles, freaking out, being a kid from I'd never been away from my home for more than probably 3 weeks. And, suddenly I went from a town of, 300,000, maybe 225, 250 to 7 or 8 million. Yeah. It was quite a culture shock. But
how did you adapt to that?
Well, I've always been pretty, it's been pretty easy for me to adapt to things and meet people and so forth. So I had a girl that Julie Sal's, a girl that I was acquainted with back in Baton Rouge, who was a model, and we were at the same agency. I was actually doing Grease at the local Little Theater. I was playing Kaniki in Grease at the local, it's the local dinner theater, Auburn Lane Dinner Theater. And she gave me a call and she said, Louis, I know you want to move to California. I'm moving and I need a roommate. And I said, count me in. So I was fortunate in that she came out, found a place, and all I had to do was, when I finished the play, was just come on out. So I knew Julie, and I knew some people about 50 or 60 miles away in a city called Monrovia that is east of LA, and that was it. Yeah. So no, that's not true. I knew a guy that was a manager at a restaurant, Michael Stewart. It was a great restaurant, and anybody listening in LA that remembers the Cafe Figaro on Melrose was just an awesome diner. And so I got a job there and, met people and got an agent and just started the normal struggle that actors go through. Yeah. They were tough times, but they were glorious.
Did you get a chance to do your stunt double since you wanted to do that?
Yeah, I've done quite a bit of stunts. And, I do my own stunts whenever they let me or whenever, it's not something too insane to do. But mostly fights because I boxed for years. I started boxing in the late 70s. And so fights come very easy for me and they're a lot of fun. So I do almost all of my fight scenes. And, I've done some driving, precision driving, nothing really crazy. Yeah. But, so, I've been able to get that Jones out too,
So when you moved out to LA, what was the first gig that you got?
My first acting gig, I was asked, I was in some acting classes out here. To answer your question earlier, I did take some acting classes out here. First class I took was a class with Margie Haber, who is basically it was for cold reading because I figured if you don't know how to audition, you're not going to get jobs. And so she is a fantastic coach in that regard. To this day, she still has classes and has quite a large student base. And I met a girl there, and she asked me to come in and do a scene with her for a casting director for The Young and Restless. So I thought, hey, yeah, and it's a good way to get seen. So I did, and I got a job, and unfortunately she didn't. So that was my first job, was playing a delivery boy. They called them under fives. I think I had 2 or 3 lines, delivering flowers to Ashley Abbott. And that would have been, I think, I don't know, May of 82 or 3. something like that.
Yeah.
So, and then, and then a lot of struggling, occasional little jobs here and there. I did a fair amount of print work back in the day, and then in the late '80s, I started doing more and more TV commercials and getting some co-starring, guest starring roles on TV. And then 1991, I was asked to be a part of the cast of Murder, She Wrote. So from 91 to 96, the last 5 years of that show, which actually ran 12 years, I played Deputy Andy Broom in all the Cabot Cove shows.
Yeah. How was it? How was it being on a show like that?
Man, it was awesome because I was a recurring character, but I made enough money to make a nice living between that and the commercials I was doing. And so I had a lot of time for theater because I loved theater, and I worked out at the Lonnie Chapman's Group Repertory Theater for about 11 years. And it was great. I mean, it was a great job. It really was. It afforded me the time to do the thing that I loved the most, which was theater, and still, make a nice living. So, it's great. And not to mention working with Angela Lansbury and William Wyndham, Ron Masak, people like that. It was fantastic.
And they still replay the show on, was it Cozy TV? Cozy TV, I think it is.
I don't know where it is now, man. It's jumped around from so many places. Yeah. It's on USA, Hallmark, I think A&E at time. So yeah, I know I still get residual checks, so it's somewhere.
Do you enjoy auditioning these days, and how do you prepare for them? Yeah,
audition. I do enjoy auditioning if it's something that I'm really excited about. That's a good question. The audition process can be really silly, if you ask me sometimes. I mean, if I might get in trouble for this. Let me first say that I have great respect for casting directors, and I think casting directors are underrated in what they have to do. For example, the Emmys give an Emmy award for casting, but the Oscars don't, and they should. They absolutely should, because casting directors have huge influence on casts and usually make a lot of suggestions to the directors and producers before they even see anyone. Now, directly to your question, I don't mind auditions at all. In fact, I do like them, especially, as I say, when it's something that I'm excited about. But when you go in to audition for something that is really kind of mundane and something you've done a million times, or something that doesn't really seem to require any special skill other than just saying words, then they can be kind of tedious and uneventful. But I think actors, for the most part, a lot of actors get nervous and everything. I mean, I've gotten over that, and that's great. I rarely get nervous at auditions. But these days, there's a lot of self-taping auditions going on, a lot, because so many projects are being shot all over the world, and producers are often in those locations. So you have to, producers and directors, and you have to do the audition on tape and send it to them. A lot is lost in that process, by the way. And I think, I know casting directors know this. I don't know if producers and directors realize it as much, but you really lose a lot when you watch somebody on tape and you watch person after person after person after person saying the exact same words. Sure, you can find the one you like the best, but you may not find the person you like the best to work with. When you walk in that room and you have the personal interaction with someone, oftentimes you get a lot more information about how they're going to play that character than you would just watching them read those lines. Okay. But I don't mind it. Sometimes I pass on auditions on things that I just feel like, gosh, you could. And I know a lot of actors do this, not just me. It's like, we have reels that are available. Our body of work is out there. And sometimes you say, oh, come on, man, just make an offer or not. So, but I don't mind. Hey, listen, it's a chance to act that day. Yeah. That's kind of how I look at it.
And you mentioned about the videos and everything, and I had a question written down for you. Like, do you enjoy reading in front of people more than sending videos in?
Absolutely. no. I mean, that's the point I was making, is that
Yeah.
when you walk in the room, you have a rapport when people, because believe me, I've worked with people that, actors that I've seen for years and really like their work, maybe worked guest starred on a TV show where, that I've watched and enjoyed. And then when you meet the person, you go, wow, don't think I ever want to watch that show again. That's actually happened. And so I think that, look, if a person is a really nice person and somebody that just sort of exudes a friendly demeanor and everything, there's a lot to be said for that. Working on film and TV, it requires very long hours. You're with these people a lot. And, it means a lot to be working with someone that you like and that you enjoy being around. I mean, nobody wants to work with a dick or a,
right.
an asshole or,
Yeah.
and that will show. I mean, if somebody's a real jerk and they walk into one of those rooms, a lot of times it shows. I mean, unless they're a good enough actor to hide that part of them as well.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was saying. I think people miss out a lot. And I will tell you this, and that started several years ago, 2-3 years ago, the self-tapes really got prevalent. And there's no question that I saw, while I've been working and very blessed and I have no complaints whatsoever, I did see a drop-off on the percentage of booking when you, and I've talked to casting directors about it, and they absolutely agree. But it's the way, changing times.
The way the business is now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, you played Peter on Westworld. Tell us about the audition for that role, and how did you prepare for a role like that?
Okay. Well, first of all, I was I got a call from my manager, and he said, I got an audition for you for Westworld. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Westworld. I said, does that have anything to do with the film from the early 70s? He said, yeah, it's a HBO series based on that. And I went, oh my God, because I loved that film. It was just the freakiest film. I don't know if you've seen it, but and I have you?
No, I have not actually.
Well, I would recommend to anyone listening that likes the series, find it. I know it's out there because I watched it right before I went and auditioned, but it's campy as hell. It's dated, but you can put yourself in 1973 watching this and realize it was so far ahead of its time. Wow. And, it kind of freaked a lot of people out. And it was just one of those kind of movies that you think about and was just kind of creepy and weird and futuristic. So I was very excited about it. And then I got the sides. They were basically a version of the scene that I do with Dr. Ford in the pilot. There was 3 completely different characters, completely different dialogue, but it was this host that was being sort of analyzed by Dr. Ford. And it said Dr. Ford in the sides. I didn't know anything about Dr. Ford at the time. But so I just prepared like I would for any audition. I think it said something like the robot was, I can't remember if it said it was struggling because he was doing what he did in the pilot. He was taking in the audition sides, he was taking this host through different characters, access this, access that. So when I got into the room, I auditioned with John Papsadero was the casting director. His assistant was in the room, Deanna Brigidi, and I said, do you want to know this is a robot like in the movie? Because you could tell they were robots. They were a little stiff. And she said, no, you can't tell. Only when they're going in from one character to another. So I did the audition with not a whole lot of physicality at all. And she said, okay, great. I want you to come back for the producers, but work on a physicality that we can really, see the struggle that the host is having going from from one to the other. And I'm sort of just kind of like scratching my head thinking about it. And I said, She goes, so, do some sort of physicality. The wilder, the better, no limit. And I said, okay. And then I'm just she can see that I'm thinking, I'm sort of thinking about it. And she says, she gave me the greatest note I think any casting director has ever given me, certainly in my career. And she said, you know how when your computer gets that spinning ball? Yeah. And I went, oh, yeah, I hate that. She goes, that's what's happening to you. And I just thought, wow, that is such a great note. So I went home, started working on a physicality, that would hopefully be something a little bit different from everyone else, and just what I thought this robot would be experiencing. And then it dawned on me that not only is he having he's having a problem getting his physicality in sync, but he's having trouble speaking too. So that's when I came up with what I call that hiccuping sound. That's, as he's trying to speak. And I don't know what it was about it, Elias, but doing that made everything else sort of fall into place. Sure. And so I had several days to work on that. And then I just walked in to Lisa Joy, and she was the only producer in the room at the time, and did it full blown. And, rest was history. Yeah. Although it took several weeks before I was contacted and given the role. Yeah. I thought I hadn't gotten it. Sorry about the sirens.
No, it's okay. So after season 1, did you know you were going to come back again?
Well, the character Peter was really supposed to be in the pilot. I don't think there was any plan for Peter to get out of cold storage, and they graciously kept bringing me back in the little bits that they did. And then in episode 8 of season 1, Hale and Sizemore come in and download all that data into Peter. Well, that's when I knew I was coming back, because that was obviously, they don't make any mistakes on that show. When they present you with something that looks like it's going to continue, it will. Yeah. And so I just gave Lisa Joy a hug and said, thanks for finding ways to bring me back. Now, I had no idea at that time what I'd be doing, how many episodes I'd be in, or anything, but I did feel like I was going to be back. And then in December, would have been December of 16, I guess. I got the call that they wanted me to come back as a series regular in season 2. So that was a glorious day. And so I came back and did season 2.
Yeah. So what's the best advice you've received from somebody in the acting world through all these years you've been acting?
Best advice. I think the best advice is for actors is just don't take it personally. Don't take any rejections personally. That's probably the top tier, because we do take things personally. It's hard not to. It's hard not to take something personally when you put your blood and guts out, and you're very vulnerable as an actor, and going in and performing for people you've never seen, and performing for people that you might be the 20th person they've seen do the exact same thing, and they're sitting there with no smiles on their face, and they're like, hi, how are you? Yeah. And then, and you may not get a reaction. You just can't take things personally. You really can't. I think that was a note that I took to heart quite some time ago. And then my own advice would be, when you go into the room, because I've done some teaching as well. When you go into the room, I always ask my students, I said, you go into a room, there's a writer, there's a director, there's a producer, there's a casting director, and maybe a couple of other producers as well, associates or execs. So you got a room full of these people. I said, when you walk out of the room after your audition, who do you think is the best person to please? Who's the one you want to please the most? And they're like, well, the writer, because it's his word. No, the director, because he's making. And I said, no, you. Because if you walk out of that room and you go, man, that's great, I nailed it, then that's all you can do. Yeah. because it's all very subjective. So I always say, do the best you can, prepare. And you asked about how I prepare. I simply read it and read it and read it and read it until it just becomes second nature to say it. Okay. And I don't necessarily set out to memorize it, but if you read it enough, you do memorize it. If you read it enough, it becomes just sort of part of you, and you can go in and listening is another huge thing. Don't just wait for your turn to speak. You listen to what's being said to you and react, because the delivery may come in a way that you never expected. Okay. And you have to respond to it in a way that works for the way that it was delivered. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. So, like I said, you've been acting for a long time. Like, do you have a dream role that you hope you could play someday, or have you already had it, you think?
Well, certainly Peter Abernathy is a dream role. There were other things that would be fun to explore with Peter Abernathy, but I think I've actually gotten sent a couple of scripts lately that are characters that are very intriguing. One is a guy that's just gotten out of jail for a long time and pretty hardcore guy, not necessarily a real bad guy, but someone who just circumstances saw him do time, and then he's getting out and trying to adjust to the world. It's something, I just got the script and just exploring this. So it's something that, that kind of thing, characters, I love playing characters that are as far away from me as possible. Okay. The further away, the better, So I don't know. I would like to do some bigger films with some action and, that kind of thing. Physicality. I love physical roles. But, they'll come.
So what's a one fun fact about you that you want the listeners to know?
Let's see. One fun fact. Well, gosh. Oh, man. It's fun for me. I don't know if it'll be fun for them. I'm an art collector. I love art. I have, 70, 80 paintings in my home. I'm just a freak for original art. And I'm also a lover of classic cars. I have a 68 Ford Mustang Fastback and a 71 Corvette Stingray. Those are fun for me. Yeah. It's, and there
you go.
Yeah.
So lastly, let's talk about plug your projects again that you have coming up.
Okay. Let's see. October 12th, a film called I Still See You with Bella Thorne. And it is a incredibly interesting film. It's based on a novel called Break My Heart 1,000 Times by Daniel Waters. And it's a post-apocalyptic film or a post-partial apocalyptic film. I play a man named Dr. Steiner who was messing around with colliders and sort of caused a partial apocalypse. Wow. And the people that died during that event sort of remain in ghost form. They're called remnants. And so you never really know if the person you're looking at is a ghost or a remnant. If it's a remnant, you could literally walk right through them. But these people relive the last moments of their life. So Bella's character, she comes down for breakfast every morning, and her dad is sitting there reading the paper for, a few minutes, and then just disappears. Wow. So the weird part is that these people have to relive every day. They're reminded about losing their loved ones. It's really a fascinating story. The screenplay is written by and produced by Jason Fuchs, and it's that's a great little film. October 12th. I did this film called Labyrinth with Johnny Depp, and then they changed it to City of Lies, but I believe they're having issues with the release on it, so I'm not quite sure what's happening with it. But I don't even know if I can talk about some of the stuff, but this thing, What If, with Renee Zellweger, that's going to be on Netflix. I can assure you, this is something that's going to be really interesting. It's really clever. It's really clever. I'll just put it that way. Yeah. So I hope people will watch that. And hey, if you like New Orleans, when Mr. New Orleans comes out, it's a fun read. I mean, it's a fun read. The book is a blast to read, but if you don't feel like reading it, you can listen to me grind through it.
And how can the listeners find you on social media?
Louis, at Louis, and it's LOUIS _ Herthum, HERTHUM, and that's Instagram and Twitter, and I'm on Facebook too. I'm easy to find on Facebook, Louis Herthum.
All right,
So yeah, man,
this was fun. Thanks for coming on.
Well, my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me on.